All right.
I have a mess. I promise I'll move that in a second.
Call this meeting to order. And I'd like to have a motion to go into executive session to discuss exempt staff salaries, district clerk evaluation, the school attorney contract, restructuring of food services administration, MOAs with REGA Teachers Chapter regarding sick leave reserve and summer ESY program, and pending division of human rights matter. I'll take a motion. Ms. Straczynski and Ms. Abdullah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're in executive session. We'll head down the hall. I'll call this meeting back to order, and if you're willing and able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll remind everybody at the table to try and get the microphone as close as you can, and I have a habit, I know, of turning my head to see who's voting, so I apologize. I will try to be more mindful of that this evening. We'll start with some introductions. I'm Diane McBarry, Board President. To my left.
Bill Wright, Superintendent of Schools.
Good evening, Nikki LaPlaca, board member.
Good evening, Sarah Warren, Student Representative.
Pat McHugh, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources.
Dina Wilson, Assistant Superintendent for Instruction.
Hi, Andy Whitmore, Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations.
Good evening, Neil Lunaselm, Assistant Superintendent of Student and Family Services.
Good evening, Doug Rivers, Board Member.
Good evening, May Abdullah, Board Member.
Good evening, Jennifer Laird, Board Member.
Dolores Tellerico, Acting District Clerk.
Hello, Anne-Marie Straczynski, Board Vice President.
Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Seeing none. Any announcements? All right, I will say for us here at the table and in the audience, if you remain seated and are not walking around and you need to take a mask break, please do so. We recognize it's a hot night. Unfortunately, we cannot get back into the high school yet, so where the air conditioning is. So if you need to slide it down for a while, as long as you're distant and seated, you may do so. All right, this brings us to, I have a recognition this evening, and this is for our student representatives. And I see that Ariana is not here this evening, but this is for Ariana McKnight and Sarah Warren. Sarah Warren. I have Wagner on the brain tonight. And I'm going to read this resolution from the board. Whereas Sarah Warren, as a Rush-Henrietta student, has balanced her academic success with her personal growth and development, and whereas Sarah Warren has served as a student liaison to the Board of Education and represented the interests and concerns of Rush-Henrietta students, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Rush-Henrietta Central School District does hereby express to Sarah Warren its sincere and profound admiration for her service to the board during the 2020-2021 academic year. The board honors her academic achievement, leadership, service to the district, her maturity, her pursuit of excellence, and her love of learning. I'll take a motion to approve this resolution for Sarah Warren. I have Anne-Marie Straczynski and May Abdullah. All in favor?
Aye.
And that's a unanimous. I'm going to walk over and hand this to you, Sarah.
Thank you.
She's so cute.
Thank you, everyone.
And that brings us to your report.
All right, so as we close up the year, Student Council is starting our new elections. We will find out our new officers by this Friday, and everyone is very excited to see who got what. Everyone is wrapping up and getting ready for the summer, and seniors and juniors are very excited for prom and ball as it is approaching quickly. Seniors attended a senior sunrise and got their last yearbooks together. Our events are coming up, such as parades and graduations, and the students are thrilled to take parts in these. Thank you so very much. That's the end of the report.
Great. It's exciting stuff that we're able to have some activities for you.
Yes,
That's great.
very excited.
Excuse me, Diane. Gentlemen, can you turn it up? It's like mumbling. I can't hear anything.
It might be just, all right. All right.
Did you hear it?
I couldn't hear anything.
This brings us to the public forum.
That's better.
That's better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is where audience members may address the Board of Education regarding items of interest not on the agenda. If you wish to speak regarding an item on the agenda, please raise your hand while that item is under discussion. We are going to try and keep our comments to 3 minutes. I have several cards here, and they were randomly handed to me, so I'm going to just go with the one that's on top. I have Kristen Cavatasi. Please come to the microphone. State your name and address for the record. It's right up here.
Really short, so.
Yep, go ahead, pull it down, yep.
Hi, Kristen Cavatasi, 44 Night Frost Lane, Henrietta. Anything else? All right. So thank you so much for giving me the time tonight. This is my first time meeting many of you in person. I've been on many calls with you as I joined the DPAC this year. I've certainly been much more involved in my child's education this year than I ever thought I would be. I think it's been extremely warranted given the challenging year that we've had and some of the incredibly important decisions about their education that have been made this year. So the main reason that I'm here tonight and have finally decided to come and speak is because there's been much confusion over the masking guidance that's been provided by the Department of Health and Governor Cuomo. With the confusing guidance, or what that confusing guidance has, however, allowed for, is for individual schools to kind of find those gray areas and make some decisions on their own for once. For weeks now, other districts within Monroe County have allowed no or optional masking outside. Rush-Henrietta did not implement that policy until yesterday. My question is why? And why hasn't that been communicated yet? Other schools within Monroe County, including Pittsford, Hilton, and Fairport, are allowing students to remove their masks while at their desks, where they spend 5+ hours of their day. My 7-year-old child loved kindergarten and the first part of first grade. This year, she hates school. It's a challenge to get her out the door every day because we've taken all the fun out of it. It's no longer enjoyable. Would you want to sit at your desk for 5 hours a day with no mask breaks whatsoever in this kind of heat? There's no field days, there's no fun days, parents can't come into school, we can't celebrate birthdays. It's literally a nightmare. When my daughter does get to go outside, I've seen pictures. They sit 15 feet apart from each other. It's honestly really hard to see. The teachers think that they're doing us a favor by allowing the children to go outside and take a quick mask break. They are sitting across a football field from one another. I asked the teacher if my daughter could take a mask break because she came home one day with a stomach ache. She literally came home feeling sick, as I do right now, being in this heat. And I was told that because it will make all the other children want to take a mask break as well, and that's pretty disruptive, she needs to go into the bathroom. So she'll have to go into the bathroom, where I also receive pictures of their class pet spider that lives on the wall of the bathroom. I honestly just can't believe what we're doing to these children. Every day when I send her on the bus and she has to pull her mask up before she walks on, it physically makes me sick. I know that there's a lot outside of your control. I know this has been an extremely challenging year, but what I also know is that others are in the exact same shoes as you, and they're starting to do the right thing. They're starting to take a stance of their own. There may only be a few more weeks of school left, but imagine if you could give these kids the best ending to an absolutely awful year. What if you were responsible for bringing some good? And yes, I recognize that there's many that still want their children to wear masks, and they want to continue to wear masks, and that's fine. They can continue to do so. But please give us that choice back. Please let the parents take this control back. Let us do what's best for our own children, for their mental health, for their physical health, for their safety. Unmasking while seated at desks isn't the ultimate goal, but it is a step in the right direction. I'll leave you with this. If Pittsford and Fairport, 2 miles down the road, can do it, so can we. I really don't understand why we can't make the same decisions that they are. And I'll say that my friends in Fairport's kids came home yesterday smiling, jumping off the bus, bouncing, saying it was so wonderful to see my friends' smiling faces for the first time today, Mom. Thank you.
Thank you. The next card I have is Mike Haida.
Hi, everyone. The 11 Bracknell Circle, West Henrietta, New York, 14586. So obviously I haven't been here in a while, but first half of the year I came to, I think, every single one. It's good to see more people here. It means two things. People are caring much more about it, but then also things that might not be going so right. Obviously, my responsibility is here for Mark, as it always has been, right? Summer school, in-person summer school is what's right in front of us right now, and that's my main concern. Obviously, the ICOT program, that's still questionable for what he's doing. It feels like he's being pulled forward and being left behind at the same time. Teachers have always been great, never a concern there, but they can only do so much. Obviously, the last 2 years, they've been constrained with time and in-person learning. The summer school learning part, obviously, we had his IEP CSE meeting month and a half ago now, and that, you know, obviously there's the extended school year for the special education kids, you know, and it's always been my responsibility or the topic or point that Mark falls in that group that gets left out, right? That's always asking for more and trying to do more. And it's sad to think that this district used to do more from a summer school program standpoint. Point in case, our oldest needed very little help. And she attended summer school back, she's 10th grade now, so 2nd, 3rd grade time frame. And that was offered to everyone. And now I'm sad, that kind of disappointed that I didn't even have to be here to ask for the last 2 years of what's gone on, that's even a topic of discussion. And obviously with the federal CARES money, obviously that should be a big point of discussion and implemented. It shouldn't even been a topic of discussion. It should have been something that is being done, and not online, in person. Obviously restrictions are being lifted. That shouldn't be a concern in terms of spacing, school space, whatever. I've also heard the rumor that there's maybe lack of interest from the teachers to do summer school. And, you know, prove me wrong on that, but maybe there's, you know, federal care money to incentivize that for the teachers to have some incentive to do that. So, you know, that's a little bit concerning too, that, you know, I've heard that they just want a break, and you might not have enough interest there to even provide something like that on a level. You know, in terms of the parts of, you know, looking at other programs or other opportunities for Mark as he enters next year into 5th grade, we looked at outside opportunities. But unfortunately, when he's still at a 2nd grade level and it showed some progression, but not enough regression to get that additional level or qualify for an extended school year, it's tough. They couldn't accept him because they were fearful of being able to provide a program that he could fit into at a minimum of a fourth grade level, that for going into a fifth grade program for outside that we were hoping for. But I think we got to deal with it right now. I've got confidence that from the fall standpoint that things should be back to normal. I don't see why not, but right now the learning loss is just multiplying every day, and that summer in-person program needs to be implemented ASAP, and no way around it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next card I have is Blake Smith.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. I had a little trouble reading last time. I just wanted to mention, when I was here about a month ago, I discussed, I live at 1040 Rush Scottsville Road in Rush, and I've lived there since 1986, and I have been a taxpayer to Rush-Henrietta since 1986. And thank you. I was discussing the positive cases, the 7-day case average. We are now at a 46 level on the 7-day average, and we are also down to 1.3% of positive cases average during the week by their count, which I seriously do not understand, but it's only, that is like less than half of what it was last month, and now we are below the 100 level that I heard mentioned when I was here last time. That was a possibility to reopen fully. We're looking at that number. But of course it is June 8th today. I just wanted to mention that. One of the things I have trouble with are vaccine clinics in schools. I think that for the younger kids and anyone who doesn't qualify as an adult, it should be done with the parents' discretion and with their parents at a clinic. I don't think it needs to be pushed at any of the schools. And when I saw Governor Cuomo talking about it yesterday, it actually made me physically ill watching him almost demanding people get vaccinated so we could reopen the schools. So that's what I'm thinking he's thinking. I don't want to dwell on that, though. I understand and agree with everything the woman before me said about the masking. I have a really, I don't know, I think it's disgusting with the masking. I think it's interfering with breathing, especially when kids are in phys ed. I think it really should have seriously been looked at, the physical distancing that's already in place in these rooms. And it seems like the school system has always said we need to mask and have the distancing, and that's actually not what the guidance was way in last year. But if it's implemented with the school district, there's really not much I can say about that. But I'm just mentioning that. I think unless the schools are fully open, I'd love to see 5 days. We shouldn't be adding curriculum, and I don't want to get into it, but extra curriculum like critical race theory, gender studies, equity, and especially the comprehensive sexuality education that Sam Rabrauk, our senator, has put up in a bill. I think that's ridiculous. I think the sex education I got when I was in school was more than adequate. And that was many years ago. I'm concerned with the budget when we put the additional money for the buses. I don't know if that's state law that has to be done every once in a while. I'm not looking for an answer or anything, but I'm questioning why we couldn't have waited till next year to do that, because obviously the vehicles during last year and this year were not used as much, and it could have waited, in my opinion. I am a bus driver, and I do know some things about this. Lastly, I would like to mention, I did give my name and address here on my sheet, and on the voter guide that was in the last newsletter, it mentioned that we were supposed to give proof that I lived here, how long, my name and address, and for some reason, I wrote my name down and address and nothing was checked. And I know some districts were checking and some were not, and my question that does not need an answer is, why is it written in the newsletter if it's not being used? That's all I have. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Last card I have is David Stevenson.
Hi, Dave Stevenson, 69 Gatehouse Trail, Henrietta, New York. I just want to express my support for making masks optional. Masks should not be mandatory, should be a parent's and child's discretion. Also want to express my opposition for mandatory vaccination. Everything appears to be moving towards that for the fall, that mandatory vaccination will be a requirement for school. I want to express my opposition to that, and I also express my opposition to schools being involved with vaccination. It should be a parent's decision. My major topic tonight is that I'm concerned with the New York State Framework for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion that is being adopted by the Rush-Henrietta School District. Democrat Vice President Kamala Harris started a debate on equality versus equity. The Democrat agenda suggests people should be more concerned with equality of outcome rather than equality of opportunity. Equality of outcome is a core principle of Marxism and communism, and the results are tyranny. Equality of opportunity is a core principle of capitalism and freedom. Black Lives Matters was co-founded by trained Marxists and has the seal of approval of the Communist Party of the USA. The rationale for these types of programs is that there is systemic racism. The only systemic racism that I see is where a school district like Rochester or Rush-Henrietta keeps schools closed and minority populations get an inferior education via remote or hybrid learning instead of a 5-day-a-week in-person education. The structural forces behind systemic racism keeping school closed are teachers' unions, school boards, and superintendents. Instead of focusing on a colorblind approach, like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. advocated, we are left with Democrat Party identity politics. Such policies devolve into divisiveness instead of unity. Martin Luther King advocated for the only approach that will bring unity, colorblindness. He said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character."
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to speak during the public forum? Please come to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Julie Wervin. I live at 40 Osprey Drive in West Henrietta. I could speak on many different topics that I've become very passionate about this year. Originally, I was concerned about the email with equity and inclusion, but I feel like the more important thing right now is masking. It's not a safety issue. As you said earlier, if other districts can do this and allow kids to make the choice, parents to make the choice to take their masks off safely at their desks, I don't know why we can't do that. I kept my 4th grader home yesterday from school due to the heat, and we had a great day. I tried sending him back today. He's never been to the nurse's office once. He was terrified to ask, but I told him, I said, "You take as many mask breaks as you need to today. It is not worth your health and your safety. School has become an unsafe place to be. It shouldn't feel like that. But he finally went to the nurse's office because he had a headache, and my husband came and picked him up. And I had also emailed the principal and the teacher in the morning saying that I'm concerned about the heat and the humidity today, but he really wants to try to go to school and finish the year. We decided today that he's not going to come back and finish the year. He can do some work from home. He can do it in a safe, air-conditioned building where he's not afraid of being yelled at or judged or ridiculed or anything. He feels intimidated and he feels scared when he's at school. My older kids can speak a little bit more for themselves, but I feel it's my duty to speak for him. We've already decided that he needs to go to a private school next year, where when you have conservative feelings, you're not treated with equity, we don't feel, in this community anymore. And we feel that we need to find a better place for him. If masks came off, would he want to go back for the last couple of weeks and enjoy being with his friends and seeing their faces, some of them for the first time? Possibly. But if not, do it for the rest of the kids. Give them some sort of normalcy back. It's not about their safety. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address.
Kim Bodden. I'm at 6898 East River Road in Rush. I'm here to speak about the equity and inclusion update. I appreciate everyone's comments on the masking. I 100% agree with everyone's comments here tonight that got up, and thank you for doing that. I feel frustrated and not heard in regards to any of the things that I've spoken of this year, and it makes it very difficult to come and continue asking questions. So in regards to equity and inclusion, I appreciated your email that you sent out this week, and I have a couple questions and comments, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to address these in the future. And it is in the name of transparency. One of the paragraphs that you had in this letter led to the creation of new common units of study relating to race that are now taught throughout Monroe County. You talked about one lesson, the practice of redlining. Redlining is terrible, and I'm glad to have read about it in the past. What I'm hoping that you will share are other common, what are they called? Other topics that are going to be discussed in the schools relative to systemic racism. Redlining is absolutely one. I'm more than happy, and I want the children to learn about actual, factual occurrences of systemic racism. So in the future letters, I'm hoping that you can share additional components of that. Secondly, you mentioned in the next paragraph that critical race theory is not part of the curriculum in Rush-Henrietta. And I would like to know, how do you make the distinction in the classrooms and with books? How do you know what's considered critical race theory and what's not? I have in my hand a book that was on the 5th grade book list in Fairport, and it's called Something Happened in Our Town. In this book, it talks about a black man that was shot by a white cop. And this is 5th grade. And there's discussion in here about the fact that the cop will not go to jail because all cops stick together. That's literally the language. And one other comment is the fact that the black man was shot because he was black. I don't think that's acceptable. That's 5th grade reading. If that's not indoctrination, I don't know what is. So what I would like to know is, I would like access to, and I think every parent should have access to, the public records request form, because I would like to know what my child is going to be reading, what books are on the accepted list for him next year in his civics class. And I think every parent should have a right to see what their children's book list is about and what's in there, and have a right to the content in that book. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right, thank you for all your comments. This brings us to consent agenda items for routine matters. These are actions pertaining to award of produce bids, treasurer's report, student aid account, approval of textbook for new AP computer science class, approval of the CSE, CPSE recommendations, and our regular meeting minutes from May 25th. I'll take a motion to accept. Mrs. LaPlaca, Ms. Abdullah. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. This brings us to personnel actions. I'll take a motion to approve. Yes, Ms. LaPlaca.
I'd like to let the record state that I am related to Rosetta LaPlaca, who is mentioned in Personnel Actions Number 10. I do not need to abstain.
Okay, great. I'll take a motion to accept May. Second, Mrs. Laird. All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. All right. This brings us to item 10, action pertaining to the approval of the superintendent's contract. We'll take a motion. Ms. Abdullah. Second, Mrs. LaPlaca. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. This brings us to some memorandums of agreement. The first one is action pertaining to the MOA for the RHEA Teachers Chapter, establishing terms and working conditions for the district's summer extended school year program. And I'll take a motion to accept that. Mrs. LaPlaca, second. Mrs. Straczynski, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The second one is a recommendation for the approval of the MOA with the Rush-Henrietta Employees Association Teachers Chapter, revising language in the 2019-2021 collective bargaining agreement, Article 8, Section 8, pertaining to sick leave reserve. A motion to approve. Mr. Rivers. Second. Mrs. Laird. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. This brings us to the district's workshop on the SIT district plan. And as we have this workshop this evening, I'd like to remind everyone of our process. The presenter will share the workshop information. The board will have their opportunity to have dialogue and ask questions. Once the board is finished, the board will entertain questions or comments from the floor. Any questions or comments are to be directed to the board rather than to individual staff. And I remind you to raise your hand, but wait till we're finished with our process, and then I'll recognize you. Thank you. I'll turn that over.
Diane, real quick, is it all right if I'm having a really hard time hearing?
I can't hear you, Doug, I'm sorry. What was that?
I'm having a real hard time hearing with that fan. Can I move that or?
Look, turn it off or turn it down or turn it away or whatever you need to do. All right, thank you.
Great. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to report to the board this evening. As you know, District Policy 2265 requires that the Board of Education review the district's plan for site-based planning and shared decision-making every 2 years. Our biennial review, so every 2 years we call together a committee of representatives to various stakeholder groups to review the district plan and gather feedback from the school improvement teams in all of our schools and make recommendations for any changes. A little bit of history. Our last review was actually in 2018. We were scheduled to have the biennial review last spring, and the board obviously postponed it due to the COVID shutdown and the inability to have a meeting. So the board extended the existing plan for an additional year. We were able to call and convene the committee this year, this spring. The committee had one meeting. We reviewed the plan. As you recall, in 2018, we hadn't had a review in about 8 years before that. So there were some pretty extensive updates and changes that needed to be made to the district plan. So this time through, it was really a very quick process. And you'll notice from the strike bold draft that is in your packet, the changes are pretty much minor. In 2018, we had made several changes to really bring it up to date and up to current practice, that the shift, as you recall, really was away from so-called shared decision-making and management teams toward our school improvement teams, where the focus is mainly on student academic achievement and district culture and climate and safe learning environments, and making sure that the school improvement plan is aligned to the district priorities. So having done that extensive language cleanup, the committee this time around felt that it really wasn't necessary to recommend any major changes. So you have in your packets the strike bold version of the proposed changes of the district plan. As well, we've included our recommendations to each district or each school improvement team and the principal of the building on any recommendations that the committee made based on what we see as the current status of their school improvement team versus the district, what's required in the district plan. What we did was, last winter, we sent out a survey to all the school improvement teams, asked them to do a self-assessment on various areas that are in the district plan to make sure that their practices align with the district plan. So where you see in that second document, the document that shows the recommendations, what you see there is the committee's findings based on what each school self-reported. When we held it up to the district plan, if we've noticed any discrepancies or any things that were lacking, we made a recommendation. So for example, all school improvement teams are required to have teacher representatives and parent representatives. If, for example, a building doesn't have a parent representative on their team, then they're getting a recommendation in their recommendations to fix that problem. And what we'll do is we'll check in again next year and make sure that they have followed through on that. Any questions on the district plan or on the recommendations to the buildings? Then I would like to thank the members of the district's team. They are listed in the memo that I had to Superintendent Wright, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
So, Pat, if I can ask a question, I see it's the common thing between schools that we seek more representation from paraprofessionals and parents. And I was wondering if we are going to maybe focus on diversifying the group of parents who will be part of this. I'm talking about like from special ed, and is it in the plan to do that?
I'm sorry, I missed part of your question at the end.
That's okay. So I see that it's common between all the schools that we need to focus on adding more representation from, especially with parents groups. And I was wondering if we are going to be diversifying the group of parents we are bringing to the table as part of the SIT team. And I'm talking about like because I sat on Roth's group, and I was wondering if we are going to add more parents from special ed, because this is a great opportunity for parents' input, and I would like to see more input from more parents taking advantage of that.
I'm going to meet with each of the principals to review the recommendations that the committee had for their plan, and I would be glad to include that feedback in the plan, that as they recruit, they have an eye toward ensuring that there's diverse representation on their teams. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I think at some point the board does need to take action on accepting the revisions to the plan, so that we can then go forward and update that on the website. I don't know if you want to do that now, or if that's the next meeting.
Just one more thought, Pat, going along with the recruitment phase.
Yes.
I've seen it brought up at several PTO meetings, them trying to get, and I know it's hard to get volunteers right now, but I just feel like we have to follow through with more fidelity on that recruitment, because this is really an important piece for us in the district, and I just feel like, it's kind of dismissed. So I would like, when you have that conversation, to reemphasize that piece for us.
Absolutely.
I know it's hard to get volunteers, but this is really very important work.
Yes, absolutely, and I think some of it has to do with, it is hard to get volunteers, but by the same token, maybe there's other ways that we could be doing outreach and recruitment. That's one of the things I wanted to discuss with the principals, because several members of the committee mentioned that, they don't get agendas, or they don't know where minutes are posted and so forth, and I think we're continuing to rely on some outdated methods of communication where we could be a little more proactive, putting things in the principal's e-news and other vehicles that parents and community members have access to. So I appreciate the feedback. I would definitely share that with the principals.
Thank you. We have a question in the audience.
Well, first I'd like to thank Mrs. Abdullah and Mrs. McBride for your comments just now, which I think are excellent. And I just wanted to mention in the checklist of the document, in your presentation, you talked about making sure that the plan is aligned to district priorities, which I think is great. The checklist says, is it consistent with the district's mission, vision, and core values? So I would just suggest nowhere in this are the priorities mentioned, and yet the priorities really do, I think, some work and are meant to guide a lot of the thinking, right, of these kinds of groups. So I would suggest you consider including priorities in the document and in the checklist, and then just reiterating what some of the board members just said. Number 3, have the relevant stakeholders and beneficiaries been a part of the process? Another way of saying that is, who's missing from the table, right? So if, for example, part of the plan really deals with English language learners, are there parents at the table whose children are English language learners? So just going along with that, recruitment of making sure the right people are at the table. So just wanted to make those comments. Thanks.
So have that piece, is that something you would like to change before we vote on it?
I might suggest that because this is a multi-year plan, that the district priorities not be included, because the district priorities are reestablished by the board every year and may change. But if you'd like them in there, we certainly could include them.
So, is the board comfortable voting on the revisions as stated here in the plan, or do we need to ask for that addition to the checklist? I guess I'm asking, are you ready to vote on it now, or do we need to add that piece to the checklist?
We should probably add the piece, right?
I think really what the comment is not directly the priorities themselves, but are we looking at those when we make our decision? I see a head nodding this side.
I'm comfortable voting on it, and
okay.
Pat is in agreement. We are going to add them, so I'm comfortable.
I mean, we could certainly add the words "and the district priorities" to that. I just would be hesitant to list the current district priorities because they could change.
Okay. So I'm waiting for a motion from someone to accept it as written.
With the amendment, yeah.
With the amendment. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This brings us to our district policy regulations and exhibits. Seeing this is a second read, I'll take a motion to accept as they are written. Mrs. Laird, a second. Mrs. LaPlaca. Any further discussion on them? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. This brings us to the superintendent's report.
Okay, there were 3 written reports that were submitted for your review and consideration, one being the exit poll findings, the other being the Cub Care annual report, and the last document being the student satisfaction survey. Are there any comments or questions related to any of those submissions?
I do think there's a couple comments in the exit poll that we need to come back and reevaluate, and one of them was the concerns that with people coming in to vote and no ID and that piece. I think we need to come back and revisit that piece. I know why that we changed it, but I think we should at least have a conversation regarding that. Any other concerns or comments regarding those reports? All right.
And then I would just like to update you on some of the year-end events that we have coming up. You know, our focus right now is to make sure that we celebrate our students and end the year in a meaningful way. Sarah, our student representative, talked about the upcoming prom and ball. We are going to be having another Royal Comet Roundup that is going to be on June 21st from 4 to 6, so we hope that the board can participate in that and our community can participate in that. That was an event that I think will probably stay as part of our tradition long after COVID-19 has left us. At least I hope so, because I think it's a fun community celebration and a very nice way to honor our seniors. I also wanted to note again that graduation is scheduled for the 25th and the 26th. We did get permission from the local Department of Health so that in the event of inclement weather, we would be able to move the ceremonies into the gymnasium. In that case, masking would be required unless guidance changes. We would have to distance students and families within that space, but that we have one of the largest gymnasiums in the county. Every ceremony would be under 350 students in a space that can seat up to nearly 2,000. So we would be comfortable doing that. It would also allow parents to plan appropriately. We would have to make that determination based on weather predictions prior to. We wouldn't be able to make it the day of, and we would make sure that it was adequately communicated. But for parents who have taken the day off of work or are planning to leave as soon as the ceremony's over to go on vacation or have a graduation party that they're cooking for or catering, it makes the situation a whole lot easier. So that is the plan for graduation. As you will remember, last year, our team did an incredible job of preparing for those ceremonies. We actually were honored because of the field design, and it will be just as beautiful this year and just as meaningful. We're committed to making sure that our seniors are honored in a way that's more than appropriate. So, like I said, that will be our focus over the course of the next few weeks. If guidance changes, which it tends to do fast and furiously, then we'll make sure that folks are updated as far as what those changes will mean. Questions and comments about anything that I discussed?
For the roundup,
Yes.
is there a way to let the community know? I heard a lot of folks in the community last year say, oh, I wish I had known, I would have stood along the route, to be able to cheer on our seniors. So I don't know if there's a way to encourage that safely. And I'm not just talking masking wise, I'm also talking traffic and,
Sure.
cars on
Yep.
Lehigh Station. I know they've closed the road down for that, but I think there are some people in the community that would want to support our seniors.
I'm certain that we can put our heads together and come up with some ways that we could make more people within the community outside of parents and students aware that that event was going on. More people, the better. Like I said, we proved that we can do it safely last year. I'm sure that we can do it safely this year, especially outdoors.
Are we making the community known that the road is closed and it will go beyond, way beyond Winslow, like it went all the way to the town park last year?
Again, we could make that part of the message. I think the one thing I'll say about last year is this is the first time we did, so we didn't really know what to expect. So there were some things that we realized after we did it that we probably will have to communicate. And we have a community relations team that's second to none. So I think that we can have that conversation with them and figure some things out in terms of the best ways to communicate it more broadly.
Great.
I have a question.
Yep.
Way down here. For the upcoming junior prom and senior ball, which will be outside, are they required to mask outside?
That's a very good question. So I would say on its face, it sounds like we should be able to do those things without masks, but I did ask our attorneys to research it because it has come up as a question, and I'm not certain. So we do have, I asked for our Fiorenza to do some research on that for us, because
I mean, I know some districts that they have been outside where they haven't had masks, but some where they have had masks.
yeah, I think the reason some people are questioning it is because there was very specific guidance that came out related to mass events like graduation and prom and ball. And so the question becomes, does the amended guidance which came out yesterday related to masking outdoors, does that supersede the event, the mass event guidance that came out a few weeks ago? So that's what we have to get clarification on.
Thank you.
Hopefully the answer is no, because they're outside, they don't have to mask, but we will have to see what comes out from the state, if anything comes out from the state. And then, like I said, we'll have to, we have our attorneys looking into it as well.
Thank you.
Stay tuned.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. All right, this brings us to board member reports. The only board member report we have is from the Monroe County School Board Association annual meeting. I believe Doug went to that. Anything to report, Doug? From the annual meeting, did you attend that?
I did. Yeah, it was a good meeting. I don't have a ton to report, but
It's okay.
they had a musical, some,
Can you, thank you.
yeah, they had some students that did some musical shows, if you will. So that they did an amazing job. Also, there's an act, and I don't remember what the act stands for, but there's what they're trying to do is take and partner with schools in the community and business to try to build a better bridge. So they talked a little bit about that, and then they recognized outgoing board members, so Nikki and James. So I also have the literature for that if anybody would like that. So that's it in a nutshell.
And minutes from that meeting were also forwarded to all of us, so we have those as well. Thank you. This brings us to board officers' declaration of interest. We usually have this evening to make known to folks who's interested in leadership as we have another month before our reorganizational meeting, but it gives time for folks to think about it and think about how they might want to vote or what the process will be. Usually at that meeting, someone makes a nomination for someone who is interested or someone from the floor, and we go from
Can you
there.
speak up or take off your mask? I can't hear you.
I can't.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I just,
I'm trying to follow the rules. So the whole process of declaration of interest for the reorganizational meeting where we will vote as a group regarding who is interested in for the leadership positions of president and vice president. And that process happens at that meeting where someone will make a nomination for individuals and we will vote at that meeting. I will just put out that I am interested in returning as president, and I'll make that declaration right now. It gives folks time to think about it. I think it's been helpful this year having some stability at the table, getting us focused on the direction that we need to be headed, and I would like to continue that. I don't know if anybody else is interested in that. Typically, I see two of our new oncoming board members in the audience. Typically, first-year folks don't usually put up that interest because there's a lot to learn in the first couple of years. That isn't to say you couldn't show that interest, but that'll be part of the process of our reorg meeting in July. So I don't know if anybody else is interested in any of those two positions, if you'd like to state that now. Or you can at the next meeting if you have any interest. All right? All right. So I think, folks, I see some wheels turning. I know James isn't here, sorry. See, James isn't here tonight, but he's not going to be here then anyway, so apologize for that. All right. We'll have a further conversation at the next meeting then. This will bring us to the recap, but before we do that, I would like to ask that if Scott and Rachel and Doug would see me afterwards. I've got some things to give you regarding the orientation process, and we'd like to set up a time, Anne Marie and I, to sit with the three of you as we get some onboarding processes going for you. All right? So next is the recap.
All motions carried. The Royal Comment Roundup, tell me if I'm wrong, Bo, is on June 21st from 4 to 6 p.m. Graduations will be on June 25th and 26th. Bo is getting clarifications on whether or not the students have to wear masks at their ball and prom. And our next meeting is on June 22nd.
All right. Is there anything else? All right, then I'll take a motion for us to adjourn our meeting for the evening. Mrs. Laird, second by Ms. Abdullah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Have a good evening, everybody.